Now joining us from Sports Illustrated, this man knows the ins and the outs of the college football world, and I've got lots of questions to bounce off of him. He's Pat Forde. How are you, Pat?
I'm good, Rich. I have no good answers. But fire away.
You know what? Because you know what? But nobody has any good answers. I mean, nobody. Even those who have canceled the fall season, those who are still hoping to have a fall season. Name me somebody who's got a good answer. Nobody. Pretty much.
Nobody. I wrote last week that everyone in college sports is miserable because nobody is sure what's the right thing to do.
Nobody is sure what is the right thing to do, and it does appear, right, that the Big Ten and Pac-12 acted out of the right thing to do, but we're seeing quite a bit of pushback from the Big Ten, from member schools, from coaches who clearly were not given a heads up about all this. What do you know about the Big Ten vote and the process that went down that clearly still needs some clarifying, even though Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, did start speaking this past week about it?
Yeah, I talked to him after he released that open letter, and I asked him, I said, can you go into the details of the vote? He said it would not be prudent. I wish they would. I wish the individual schools, the presidents who have done mostly have just kind of hidden in their offices since then to stand up and say, yep, I voted to postpone, or no, I voted to play. You're being paid a lot of money. You sit in a very prominent position. You have to make difficult decisions. I don't think it needs to be a secret decision. I mean, this is not sitting on a jury in a murder trial trying to decide whether somebody needs to be put to death. It's a decision on whether to play football in the fall or to try to play later. It's just not that damn important to not be able to put your name behind how you voted, in my opinion. But that's where we are, and I think that's part of the reason for the frustration that I think has gone way over the top from a lot of people in the Big Ten.
But the issue is, though, is that whether it was 12-2 or 14-0 or even, what would it be that would be so darn close if it was, 8-4 or even closer than that? I guess what would it be? You would putting pressure on the schools that said no, or putting pressure on the schools that said yes if they find out that this was the prudent decision down the road?
I think they're scared of the backlash from disappointed, angry fans and, frankly, from coaches that have helped whip up that sentiment online and even athletic directors that have done the same. There's a lot of angry fans, and there's been a lot of oxygen pumped into that anger from people actually associated with the schools, and it's made it a difficult situation. But I wish the Big Ten would have been upfront early on, right away. When they had their first meetings to decide this: A, take the vote right away; B, let us know what the vote is; C, move on. But they have not handled this terribly well, and people just refuse to move on.
But it's not as if, Pat Forde of SI here, it's not as if the Big Ten is standing alone, Pat. The Pac-12 made the same decision the next day, but it seems to me that hasn't received nearly the amount of blowback. Am I missing something? Or has there been a parental, if not member school, blowback towards Larry Scott and the school presidents in the Pac-12?
That I've heard of. And, yes, you can say partially, okay, the Pac-12 immediately released basically their medical reasons why, and that was a good move. And the Big Ten didn't do that. But still, this is so far out of perspective, it seems to me, is that, the Pac-12 coaches, athletic directors, players, and parents have said, okay, we understand the decision. And everywhere else, the Mountain West, okay, we understand the decision. The Mid-American Conference, we understand the decision. 40% of the FBS ranks are not playing. More than half of Division I is not playing if you go to the FCS level. So it's not like the Big Ten is standing alone, made some rash outlier decision here. It's just that their fans and their people refuse to handle it, up to and including this amazing scene at the Big Ten headquarters today when a bunch of Big Ten parents came in. I don't know where they landed their helicopter, but the helicopter parents all showed up to protest. It's like, what is that really? Is this the most important thing you can be doing on this Friday? Is to fly to Chicago to stand outside a building that nobody's probably in because they're working from home because there's a pandemic? I'm just flabbergasted by this.
Well, I mean, is it so? What is it that would this have happened if Jim Delaney was still there? I mean, is it a Kevin Warren issue? Is that what it is? Again, we're talking about the former Big Ten commissioner and the current one, Pat.
Yeah, I think the result may have still been the same. They may have decided it later. They certainly would have handled the outcome of the decision differently. I think Delaney would have had all of the key people at key institutions out front talking to the local media saying, yep, we had to do it. Barry Alvarez would be in front of a microphone. The president of Wisconsin, the president of Michigan, the president of Michigan State, the president of Penn State, they would have been taking this on. I think at least they would have been strongly encouraged to do so by Delaney, and Delaney himself probably would have been a little more forceful in his delivery of things. So there's no doubt about that. But look, Kevin Warren's been on the job less than a year. I don't know whether he has the relationships with these presidents to even put the heat on them to say, I need you to step up and help make this thing go smoothly. He's been on the job 8 months, and for the first 2.5 months, things were okay, and ever since then, all hell has broken loose. As he said, I have been trying to run the conference with a telephone and a laptop and the Zoom calls. It hasn't been easy.
Pat Forde, senior writer of Sports Illustrated here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's just put a pin in the Big Ten for a second. What are the other conferences hoping, or are they just reading the science and saying this is something we can deal with? How has there been such a different reading in the SEC, Big 12, and then the ACC? I mean, North Carolina sent their kids home this week. So what's up with that?
I mean, it's fascinating, and it's kind of where our country is right now. Same set of facts are viewed very differently by different people in different parts of the country for their own different purposes. And so, they want to play in the South. They want to play in the Southwest, where most of the Big 12 is, and parts of the Midwest. They want to play up the Atlantic seaboard for now. But as you said, there's issues in the ACC, and we'll see if the resolve is there. I mean, North Carolina not only suspended classes, but as you said, sent the student body home, but not the athletes. They're supposed to stay. Notre Dame suspended classes in person. Hadn't sent anybody home yet, but they stopped all campus activities. But they do expect to practice football this weekend. North Carolina State suspended in-person classes, but they're keeping right along with football. So to me, this is kind of an indication of exactly how weak the NCAA and college institutions' position has become about these guys are just regular students. They don't deserve any more pay. They don't deserve any compensation. Now, they're very clearly being kept on campus for one reason. They need football.
No, and Pat, I had Dr. Brian Hainline, the chief medical officer of the NCAA, on the program on Monday, and he reiterated what he told to CNN over the weekend, which is the testing in this country is such a disaster that you can't have sports. You certainly can't have sports for all fall programs. You can't do it properly, and that's the reason why they canceled all college championships for the fall, which he said is the only thing that they truly can control. And I pointed out that in the same way that he, was pointing out the lack of a national strategy as a U.S. government has created the situation of testing that does not allow for sports. That what about the fact that there clearly is no national strategy here from the NCAA level and allowing all the conferences to do what they want to do locally? Isn't that the same thing that our federal government has done on testing? And his answer was, but that's a fair question. And he pointed out that the science that they've put out there is on their website for everyone to see, and that they cannot control what the conferences do. They can only control the conference championship, a national championship, and that there won't really be one. And then we're starting to hear about the CFB being able to do whatever they want to do anyway. Right, Pat? I mean, that's the way it currently looks like right now.
Absolutely. Yes. No. And this is the great fundamental failing of college sports and the NCAA itself is that when it comes to football, there are the 5 crime families, and then there are 5 other families, and there's nobody in charge and nobody looking out for the best interests of the sport. And quite frankly, if you tried to put a commissioner in charge right now, you think they're going to say yes? You think Greg Sankey wants somebody over him telling him what to do when the SEC can already do whatever it wants? No. So this is the situation they created back in the 1980s when they basically went out on their own to make their own TV contracts and make a ton of money. But that's it, is there's no uniformity. And I don't blame parents. I don't blame players. I don't blame fans for being frustrated by that, by the complete lack of a uniform stance. This is what we should do as a whole in college football, or this is what we shouldn't do. And lacking that, look, Mark Emmert is probably the most relieved guy out there because he doesn't have to make a call on what the football conferences do. He can sit back and watch them all squirm and come to their own tortured decisions. But we would be much better served, I think, if there was one decision for the entire country.
Well, I guess just to bring this full circle and remove that pin on the Big Ten, the lawsuit that Nebraska's parents are threatening to bring to the Big Ten, and the commissioner, unless he coughs up the final tally and all the notes regarding the decision-making on it, and that, COVID, as we all know, has attacked anybody's weak spot, family, professional, whatever weak spot that is out there, whether it's societal, whether it is health, whether it is familial, whether it is personal. COVID finds a weak spot, places its figurative thumb on it, and places pressure. Do you think that the decision-making that the Big Ten made and the Pac-12 made and that the SEC and the other schools are making, do you think at the heart of it is the fact that college football needs to pay their players and that the only way to have a safe college football season is to do what all the professional sports leagues did, which is to have representatives of management on one side and representatives of the players on the other side and come up with a plan in which it all works out and that everybody has to agree and that there is no representation for players because they're student athletes. And right now we have to come up with a new term. I came up with it, Pat. It's called online student, on-field athlete. That's basically what they are. I like it. Now. That's what they are.
I like it.
And that's what, do you think that is truly what is at the heart of everything? That the 2 conferences that said canceled it don't want to deal with this issue, and the 3 conferences that are still continuing it are saying the way that we're dealing with this issue is we're going to keep saying we're playing until we can't. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you know what? Bottle everything you said because you're exactly right. That is the fundamental reason college athletics is in this ridiculous, tortured state is because they have tried, ever since their inception, to pretend that athletes are just normal students and don't create revenue for the schools. And so the insistence on that stance has clouded or informed every single decision that's been made. And if the name, image, and likeness stuff had gone through a year ago, we would probably be a lot closer to being able to play. But still, if you want to take it the next step further to make sure that you would have more people able to play, yes, would probably be if there were a player representation, if there was a union of some kind, if there was collective bargaining, if there was an agreement that was put forward by the conferences that says, here's what we were asking you to do, and the representatives can say, yes, we will do it, or no, we won't. And then the players can opt out if they want individually, but collectively, they can either go forward or not go forward. And lacking that and kind of this entire charade that we've been putting up with in college sports for decades, this has been exposed now more than ever in the history of college sports.
No doubt about it, Pat, because, again, look, I want my school to play football in the worst way. I mean, I can't imagine a fall without Michigan football, right? I want it. And then seeing a schedule being put out, and then a week later having it saying, well, forget it, and then seeing my school's coach basically say, we've got the protocols to make it work. And then other member schools of the Big Ten saying the same damn thing. We've got the protocols to make it work. As a matter of fact, we've been spending weeks putting it together, and it is working. We can make this work. But knowing that there are other member schools that might not, right? And that there are other programs on the campus that want fall sports that don't have that sort of possibility. That's why it would take some sort of national league to come in and say, well, member schools that can't do it, here's some money to make sure that you can. And then other sports, here's some money that makes sure that you can. And there's no possibility of that happening, right? Like, we can't get together and come up with the plan and be reasonable as parents are asking, and college coaches are saying they wouldn't want to be part of that discussion. You can't have that discussion if you're saying, well, you're just a student athlete. That's it.
Yeah, right. No, that's the fundamental flaw. And as we've, the myriad attempts over the years to try to fix the flaw, to address the system, all run into this, first of all, philosophical intransigence, secondly, economic intransigence, because they don't want to share the money, but thirdly, then just the monumental bureaucracy of the NCAA, which is, well, we need 19 different committees to study this for a year and a half, and then we can maybe bring it to a vote 6 months after that, and then we'll see if that gets passed, and we can maybe implement it in 2024. It is so hard to get anything done, given the bureaucracy that college sports labors under.
All right, last one for you then, Pat, is when do you think, what's the fail-safe point by which the three other Power Five, Big Five conferences who are saying, let's still wait and see, what's the fail-safe point by which they make this go or no-go decision, do you think?
I think they are go until they are no-go. Like, I intend to play, forward to play, and we'll stop only if things reach a point where they just feel like it's untenable. And, it was fascinating, really interesting, where the Big 12 was the fulcrum on this whole thing. Like, the ACC was going to play, if the SEC was going to play, but they needed that third Power 5 league to do it. Big 12 decides, okay, we're in. Now you got the majority. But if one of them drops out, then do the other two say, oh, we don't have a majority anymore? I guess we're all out. So I think we're waiting just to see if they all three of those stay in there. And that's why what's going on in the ACC is so interesting, with the three schools that are running into problems on campus. I don't know. Nobody, this is another problem, of course, Rich, nobody has ever articulated a definitive, this number of cases we stop, this number of problems we stop. There's nothing written in stone. So it's all just like, we'll see how we're doing. And so nobody knows. Nobody knows what the fail-safe date is. Nobody knows what the fail-safe data is. It's all just kind of, let's see how we can do this, and if we run into enough blowback, maybe we won't. Pat,
I've loved the conversation, but I think we've literally just chased the tail, because we started by saying nobody had any good answers, and I think we've ended with that, too.
Exactly.
If I'm not mistaken, that literally just happened, but I appreciate the call and the conversation, and we'll have it again soon, hopefully. Thanks for the call.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Right back at you. That's Pat Forde of Sports Illustrated. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.